Hello. Am I still muted? Hello. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry for the delay. I had some problems with my microphone, so it wasn't working. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second event of our Restart Aviation during COVID-19 pandemic series. So the first day, day one, which was yesterday, we had a similar seminar with the nominated post holders of all Nepalese airlines. And today's event is directed towards the accountable executive. Without much ado, let's begin our seminar. So first of all, I would like everyone to introduce Mr. Simon Roberts. So he is our main speaker for the day. So he is the international safety management and human factors expert. And from his guidance, so we have the ICAO recommended practices for COVID operations, the CAAT, and he will be sharing his knowledge and insights and recommendations to us today. We also have today Raju sir, is the Civil Aviation Safety Director, and he will also be sharing a few words. I'd like to introduce everyone to Yograj sir, who is the sir. So he's the representative from Airlines Operators Association of Nepal. And also with us today is Mr. Ashish Manandar, who is the president of Aeronautical Society of Nepal. So without much ado, I would like to first invite Raju sir to share a few words. Okay, I don't see Raju sir here. Hello, Raju sir. Okay, there may be some technical problems at his end. So, I'd like to invite our president of Aeronautical Society of Nepal to give a brief introduction and to start this program.
Yeah, welcome you all for the day 2 of restarting aviation during COVID-19 pandemic. Like today, we have our target audience to the accountable executives, and we have our speakers, Mr. Simon Roberts and Mr. Raju Shrestha sir from Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal. Yeah, I think I'll hand over to Utsav again. Yeah, welcome you all.
Okay. Thank you, Ashish. So this is a small initiative from Airlines Association of Nepal, Civil Aviation Authority, and Aeronautical Society of Nepal to restart our aviation business. And for that, we have our main speaker, Mr. Simon Roberts. So I'll hand over to him now. Mr. Simon, it's all yours.
Okay, let me just show my, get my screen up. So I'm hoping everybody can see my screen. Is that okay?
Yes.
So, so good afternoon, everybody. And again, this is a almost a part 2 from yesterday, where I'm going to be talking about the challenges that you're faced with in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially as we're starting to get towards that restart situation. And again, some of you may have been there yesterday. Today, I'm going to be focusing more around the importance from an accountable executive's perspective around the restart. So I'm going to be talking about some of the challenges that you're going to be faced with, talking about trying to make sure we manage a safe restart. And again, I think everybody recognizes the importance of that. It's also going to be about helping you to support your decision making as you and your organizations move towards that restart, and helping you prepare for that restart. So in terms of some of those challenges you're facing, some of these are going to be obvious. You know, we all recognize the financial impact of having our fleets grounded and not being able to operate and get an income, yet we still have costs going out there. So again, we recognize those challenges, but also the impact on your staff. The impact on your staff throughout the pandemic, but also as we move towards that restart, again, you've got to be thinking about your people as a key element of how you move towards that restart. We've also got to recognize that because of COVID-19, people are going to be more nervous about flying again. So there's going to be a lot that you're going to have to think about in terms of how do we communicate and promote and give our passengers confidence to return to flying again, because it's in everybody's interest to try and do that. Also recognize that it's not just impacting the industry, it's a huge impact on the CAA of Nepal. So they have challenges themselves in terms of resources, the ability to carry out physical inspections and physical audits. So again, it's recognizing that the world has changed, and some of those changes are going to impact how we move towards that restart. But it is all about how do we make sure that we do this restart safely, because your risks are probably greater than they've ever been. You know, we've moved from a steady state situation, and now we've gone into this crisis situation, and now we're going to be trying to work our way out of that crisis, and it's not going to be easy. So again, we need to make sure that we do this in a planned, phased approach to make sure it's done safely. We've also got to recognize that one of the biggest challenges over COVID-19 is that the information that we have available has been constantly changing. That in itself has meant that trying to make the right decisions hasn't been easy. And we've got to recognize that information, and again, we're talking about some of this information is what's coming out of the aviation part of the system, but it's also about coming from the Public Health Authority and the World Health Organization. So again, we've got to recognize that we've got all of this different information that is changing rapidly and is going to continue to change as we learn more about it and we learn about what are the right ways to mitigate some of these risks. And I don't know if anybody's heard of this expression, but sometimes you end up in this environment where they talk about it being a VUCA environment. And, you know, for me, COVID-19 is just this, because we're in a situation, it is volatile. There's a lot of uncertainty, but we have a very complex system. And again, it's not just about starting our own operations as an operator. We work in a complex environment. So therefore, there's a lot of other organizations and other aspects that we need to engage with to make sure that we have that safe operation. And there's a lot of ambiguity right now. This situation, and again, it is a crisis situation, even now, means it's even more important for us to focus on safety. And we've got to be able to, especially at the top of the organization, to accept that we don't know what we don't know, and that is okay. So we are, you know, the whole aviation world is learning as we go, and you're part of that journey. So again, it's better to recognize what we don't know than to suddenly try and think we know it all. Historically, we've always thought of safety as being this absence of accidents. But again, it's this sort of thing, well, how do we know? How do we know that we were doing, the reason we haven't had any accidents is because we were doing some really good stuff? Or have we just been lucky? And I think we have to recognize that sometimes, you know, we can be unlucky, and therefore we need to recognize what is it that we're trying to do. And actually, we might want to start thinking about safety is about making sure we have the right capacity to do the job and have the right and effective defenses in place, because that's going to protect us from having that unwanted accident. If we do this, if we manage safety, it's going to provide the long-term stability that we need. We're all vulnerable at the moment, but we've got to be thinking about that long-term stability and not just immediate. So some simple questions you could say, but can you answer the following questions, especially at the top of the organization? What is the most likely cause of your next accident or incident when you restart operations? How do you know that? And what are you doing about it? Or what are you going to do about it? And how are you going to make sure that what you put in place is working? Now, for me, having an effective SMS will help you answer those questions. It will help you manage those questions. So for me, it's really important that as part of your organizations, as part of your restart, you really ensure that the SMS is a key tool for you to help you on this journey. I think we've also got to recognize that we're not just managing aviation safety risks. We're having to move into a world where we have to think more an integrated risk approach. So we're having to recognize that as well as trying to manage aviation safety risks, there's also the public health risks. So aviation is a vector for COVID-19 to be spread between different countries. So we've actually got a role in the aviation world to try and do what we can to help not spread the COVID-19, between countries. The last thing we need is to get to a point where, because of that increasing spread of the virus, we end up in another lockdown. You know how costly this lockdown is. We can't afford to go back to it. So as well as managing the aviation safety risks, we've got to be thinking about those public health risks. We've got to think about our own people and the fact that our own people, our staff their health is at risk in terms of how we're doing that, and their well-being, because COVID-19 has brought a lot of uncertainty and a lot of challenges for just people in their daily lives. And then let's not forget about the aviation security risks. So we've got to be thinking a more holistic way of thinking about risk than perhaps we've done in the past. And that can be quite challenging when we start to try and do risk or assess risk in perhaps the old traditional way. It's about the 3 C's. It's about making sure that we're cooperating, collaborating, communicating. And that's got to be done at all levels, from the international level to the regional level, to the national level, to the local level. And that's got to be between CAAN and you in the industry, but also amongst yourselves. You've got to start thinking about how can you work together to make sure you're collaborating, you're sharing information, you're sharing your challenges, because we're all in this together. Safety is everybody's responsibility, and we've got to be sort of thinking from that perspective. As we move towards restart, we've got to be working together on this to make sure that we end up with a safe restart for the whole of the Nepal aviation community. The challenges you're always faced with is this challenge between safety versus profit. We're struggling right now because of the grounding in terms of being close to that area of bankruptcy where we've got our financial management systems trying to protect us, but we've also got to make sure that we're going to be operating in this safety space where we need to make sure that we have a strong safety management system that's going to defend us from getting towards that catastrophe. And this isn't just an easy place where you can put yourself in that safety space, because it's changing all the time. It's almost like there's turbulence. We're faced with turbulence in that safety space, and we're having to find how we're trying to manage through that turbulence. So again, we're faced with these challenges right now. So some of these may be obvious about the impact on operations. You know, how do we manage the distancing and operational areas? Now, this isn't just to do with passengers, this is to do with our own staff in terms of the interaction between people, between teams. Again, how do we ensure that we're still communicating the right way, but trying to reduce the contact or the close contact that perhaps we normally do on a day-to-day basis. We might be having to manage with reduced personnel. That puts a lot of stress and a lot of strain on those people that are there. So again, we've got to recognize that's going to have an impact. We've got to think about the airworthiness of our aircraft. Those aircraft, a lot of those aircraft have been in storage for a long period of time. Aircraft don't like being stored. They like to be flown. So we need to recognize that as those aircraft come out of storage and we start to use them again, they're not going to be as reliable as they used to be for a while. We're more likely to see component and system failures because the aircraft's been on the ground for so long. So we've got to be prepared for that. We've got to be thinking about that in terms of perhaps trying to make sure that we have additional spare aircraft available because we know that some of those aircraft are going to have technical problems. We've got to think about the operational impacts, you know, such as just flying with a mast. That is going to have an impact in our ability to communicate. It might mean we have to change some of our procedures. You know, the challenge of because our people have stopped working, how do we address the challenge of their recency in terms of from previously being on regular routine activities to suddenly stopping that, and actually that may have an impact on their competence. It might be that most of our line engineers haven't been doing line maintenance. They've been doing care and maintenance. We're supporting with the storage of the aircraft. So again, they've changed what they're doing, and actually we might need to spend time to make sure we bring them back into that familiar surroundings of when they come back and go back into doing line maintenance. We've got to recognize there's some additional aircraft cleaning requirements. So this it is going to mean we're going to need to plan for longer turnaround times. We need to plan from additional contingency. Don't try and squeeze it all in the same sort of turnaround times, because something's got to give. And then what could be giving is, it could be an aviation safety risk, it could be a public health risk. So we've got to think about the impact on your people. People are going to be distracted. We've seen it in the Pakistan International Airlines crash. The flight crew, most of the flight they spent discussing COVID-19. They were distracted. So we've got to recognize that as people come back to work, they are going to be distracted. They are going to be concerned about COVID-19 and being infected. They might have family that are vulnerable. They might be vulnerable themselves. So again, there's going to be they're going to be distracted. We're out of routine. It might be something as simple as forgetting your security pass when you come into work, because whereas before we had a routine where we would sort of pick up our keys, we'd pick up our pass, all of a sudden, for the last 3 or 4 months, we've lost that routine, and we're suddenly going to be finding our way back into that routine. So we need to recognize that people are going to be unfamiliar with what they have been doing in the past. Again, they're going to have concerns about staying healthy, but also they recognize the challenges that the airlines are facing in terms of the business. So they're concerned themselves about the way the business is going to survive and losing their own jobs. So again, that is going to play on their minds. It might affect how well they perform. So again, it's around looking at managing their mental well-being, but also recognizing that there might be increased fatigue because we might be doing things differently. We might be having to do longer sectors, and there might be challenges because of at certain destinations, we might not be able to do layovers because of quarantine requirements. So again, that might mean we operate for longer, and we do return sector where we might have had a layover. So that's going to increase in our fatigue. We've always got to be thinking about how do we make it easy for people to do the right thing, difficult to do the wrong thing, and impossible to do the catastrophic thing. And that's about making sure we're building those defenses. We're giving our people the right PPE. We're giving people the right equipment, the tools, the time to do their job in the way that we want them to. It's important that we consider as senior managers that people will make mistakes. It is about being human. They're going to make more mistakes as we go to restart than they would have done previously because of all those things I've just said. Blame fixes nothing. So again, it's not about blame, it's about learning. We've got to learn and try and see what happened, and can we learn from that? Can we put some additional stuff in place? Because our people, you know, it's our people who are our eyes and ears of the organization. They're going to see some of the challenges face to face. And we've got to recognize that the context, the environment they're in is going to drive some of their behavior. And your response matters. The way you respond to the decision-making you make, the way you respond to events and things that happen is going to have an impact on how people are going to act in the future. So again, it's important that you know, how you visibly show your response. And again, I think this is just an example of recognizing that with any kind of piece of work, the straight line in the middle is what you expect to get out of a normal task. But the reality is that squiggly line. That's what you really get, because there is this performance variability. That variability is because of people's performance is always going to be variable. And you have lots of people in different organizations all trying to ensure that safe operation of that flight. So we've got to recognize that variability. Now, when you look at it in a crisis situation, that variability is probably going in the wrong direction. It's probably going away from the line that we're expecting to get. On top of that, in this crisis situation, we've also got to recognize that our hazards and risks are probably going up in the wrong direction. They're going to be increasing. So we've got to recognize this, and we might want to think, well, actually, let's just manage the efficiency. Let's try and make sure that performance variability, we focus on getting our people to do what we expect them to do and get them back onto that steady line. But actually, there's nothing wrong with managing that efficiency, but right now, we'd probably be wanting to manage that gap between the risks and the actual reality of what people are doing. And again, it's around trying to make sure that perhaps right now, our focus should be on managing the risk and managing our defenses rather than necessarily managing that efficiency. We can come back to that at a later date. There's plenty of guidance out there. I know CAA Nepal have done a lot of stuff around in terms of guidance, but there's also international guidance. There's IATA have produced some really good guidance around flight operations and around everything in terms of the people, the way you can operate. So again, I don't want to go into the detail here, but there's some good stuff there. ICAO have a web page purely around COVID-19. Again, some of it's focused for the regulator, but there's a lot of it focused around the industry. And EASA have produced some guidance. Again, they're all valuable documents that you want to get your people to be referring to and saying, is there anything in these documents that are useful and we should be applying, because they identify hazards, they identify good risk mitigations. So there's a really valuable resource out there that you can help you in terms of preparing for that restart. So we've got to be thinking about what is it we're going to go back to? And again, it's around, there is going to be a new normal. Things are going to be different. We need to make sure that we plan this phase start that thinks about our people. To do that, we're also going to have to ensure that there is some additional flexibility for contingency. Things are going to go wrong. Things aren't going to go to plan. It might be an aircraft going tech. It might be flight crew suddenly finding that they get infected en route or another destination. So we've got to be thinking about how we can ensure that we've got that capacity to deal with some of these things that are going to happen. It's about checking your defenses. It's the defenses that are going to protect you from the accident. So let's make sure that we're putting enough resource into checking our defenses, and our defenses are working. And often those defenses are our people. You've got to be anticipating for the unexpected. We can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow. We can't predict what's going to be happening in the future because of COVID-19. There are so many unknowns. So what we've got to be doing is prepare. The one thing we do know is there's going to be some uncertainty. So we've got to be prepared and anticipating for the unexpected. And right now, we shouldn't be taking excessive risks. If we get this wrong in terms of restart, everybody loses. The last thing we need is an aircraft accident or an increased infection because we haven't managed the infection, the control of the infection from other countries coming into Nepal, and we end up with another lockdown. So we're all in this together, and it's about making sure that we do this in a controlled, planned, safe way. There's going to be more unknowns. So therefore, and our systems and the way we operate is going to be a lot less reliable than we were previously. So that's a point where we need to make sure that we're increasing our monitoring during this restart. We want to be looking more closely at how we're working. And again, this is where, you know, your key people in your organization, your safety manager, your quality assurance manager, your flight data monitoring manager, they're really people you should be talking to on a regular basis, because they're going to be the people that are going to be able to tell you when things are starting to go in the wrong direction. So again, it's important to recognize the value that they can provide you, and, you know, keep them close to you under this situation. You've got some tough decisions to be made. You know, the simple one is, where can I operate to? But actually, you've got to be thinking around, what is the exposure to infection at those destinations? So that might lead you to actually be saying, not just where can I operate, but where should I operate? What do I need to consider? What additional mitigations do I need to put in place if I'm going to operate to that destination? And everyone is going to be different. And therefore, you're going to have to get your organization is going to have to do risk assessments for every route you take, because those risk assessments will look at the infection rates at that country. To what extent are your flight crew going to be exposed to the infection, in terms of do they have to lay over at that destination? All those things are going to have to be considered. In terms of overflight routes as well, that might be something to consider if you're flying with any alleviations or exemptions from a medical or training perspective. They need to be considered, because you might find that there are some states that won't necessarily accept some of those alleviation exemptions. So there's a lot of work that's got to be done around those risk assessments for each route to make sure that you've thought about everything, and that way you're ensuring that you have the right defenses in place for each route. So it's about focusing on your capacity and your defenses, about looking for the weak signals. So again, this is where your safety managers and your team should be looking for some of those weak signals to try and start to detect where things aren't going in the right direction and taking action early. It's about making sure that there's sufficient availability of personnel, equipment, aircraft, so that we're not squeezing ourselves where we've got no contingency. But recognizing that your people are a valuable source of learning. They're a valuable source to identify some of the problems. So again, as account executives, encourage your people to report stuff. Report the things that aren't working. Report the challenges that they're faced with, because they're to be the ones that will give you a valuable insight into some of the issues that you're faced with. You are going to have to increase your monitoring over this period. you might have to think about making, trading that short-term success, because you need to focus more about that long-term stability. This isn't about the immediate survival, it's about the long-term surviving of your organization. So you need to think about that long-term perspective. Learning is important. You need to be able to learn from the past and learn from this crisis as well. So start to think about, well, what has worked? What did we miss? What didn't we get right? Where do we need to provide additional support to our people, to the organization, to the system? But also recognizing the importance of building relationships, because that is a safety strategy. Because you don't operate in a bubble which is just your organization. So the relationships you build that are part of those relationships with other operators, the relationships you have with your contracted organizations, with the airports, even that relationship with CAAN, the regulator, should be part of your safety strategy, because you can learn from them and you're helping each other. So some key takeaways: be prepared. So again, take your time in planning your restart. Use your SMS to protect your business. It's there, it's already up and running. So try and make sure that you provide the right resources to them to be able to protect your business and keep them close in terms of how things are going there. So it is around that, focusing on your defenses, because it's your defenses that are going to help you as you move towards that restart, especially with all the uncertainty. And again, it's that cooperation, collaboration, communication. It's got to be done continuously. And it's about sharing those lessons learned. That sharing between you, between the operators, between you and the regulator, between you and the public health side of things, and with your people. So again, it's important that that communication goes on. It's important that we share the lessons learned, so that we're all trying to help each other as we move towards this restart. So that's it from my perspective. One last thing is because you will see when it comes to the risk assessments, and as you start to see risk assessments towards that restart, if all those risk assessments are green, I would be concerned. There'll be risks that should be amber and red as you go towards restart, and that's okay. You should be embracing those ambers and the reds, because that's really what's telling you where there are weaknesses in the system. Challenge the greens, because if everything is green, they might be just green for the wrong reason. I would expect it's better to have ambers and reds in there to recognize that that's the reality of the world that we're going to be in for the next few months. That's me done. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Yep. Thank you very much, Simon. Yes, the key highlight of the recommendations are all towards safety, identifying hazards, and assessing and mitigating those risks. With that being said, I would like to invite now Raju sir from Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal to highlight a few expectations from civil aviation towards the airline operators.
Thank you, Utsav. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry, it has some technical issue I had, and in different locations. So sorry for the delay, and it was some sort of delay during this opening of this program. So once again, thank you for organizing this event, and I'm pretty sure the ideas shared by Mr. Simon Roberts among the stakeholders in Nepal in civil aviation sector would be useful for all of us. Since we're gearing up for the operation of the flight from the 17th of August. It will be a good insight for all of us. The CAAN management has committed to support all the stakeholders to resume the safe flight. And on behalf of Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal, I would like to reiterate the position of CAAN, and our Deputy DG, Mr. Thapa, Mr. Nanda Thapa, is also with us, and he has expressed the solidarity of civil aviation towards the safe resumption of flight from 17th of August. So we remain fully committed to support the aviation community in Nepal by providing different expertise, guidance, and material experience sharing from different quarters. We also expect a similar proactive measures from all operators. So far, we have seen that most of the operators, they have obtained approval for the SOP when they gear up to start the operation from planned date of 17th of August. So if you need any further clarification, guidance, or support from civil aviation, you can always approach to CAAN inspectors and seek guidance and support. So like yesterday, I also repeated the same thing, that civil aviation is willing to see that the operations after, during this pandemic period or after the pandemic period is not the same as it used to be before the COVID period. We can perceive the different threats and risks associated with these threats. So I would like to encourage all of you to apply the common sense and apply the safety management principle so that our operations are safer in coming days. So will not take longer time. So rather, I would like to encourage all of you, if you have any further questions, comments, or suggestions, or any queries or some curiosity, you can always ask with the experts which are available with us. So having said that, once again, on behalf of Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal and CAAN management, I would like to thank AOAN and Aeronautical Society of Nepal, and especially our speaker Simon, who accepted our request to be a speaker in this webinar, today's and yesterday's webinar, so that it will be useful for the aviation community in Nepal for the safer operation in coming days. Thank you very much. Now, once again, let's go for any questions and queries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raju, sir. Yes, now we have come to almost at the end of our program. So this time I would like to request all the participating members to kindly raise your hands in the Viber if you have any questions that we want to direct towards Simon or towards Raju, sir. Okay, I guess we have the first question here from Gonzam sir, and this is towards Simon. So the question goes, so how do you term resuming flights in Nepal from August 17 as negative risk or positive risk? We can't hear you, Simon.
Okay, sorry, you had to unmute me. So we need to recognize that the restart is going to increase the risks that we're faced with in our organizations. The reason it's going to be increased risk is because there's going to be a lot more uncertainty. Everything from, we're more likely to have, from an airworthiness perspective, we're more likely to have component failures. Our flight crew will have been less familiar with they're out of their routine. So again, they're going to be in a situation where they're more likely to make an error or a mistake. We're also got a situation where people are now having to wear masks, We might have passengers who are uncomfortable wearing masks. We've got the challenges of the airport environment, especially in Nepal, where you have very crowded terminals. So again, is that going to create some challenges in terms of the way people behave and all those sort of things? So, and because of this, you know, this generally increased uncertainty means that there is going to be some additional risk as we start to go towards that restart. Once we move into that restart, we might find ways of actually seeing how well we are managing those risks that might give us more confidence to say that we're doing the right stuff and the things that we've put in place are working. I'm hoping that sort of answers that question.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you very much, Simon. So do we have any other questions? So I guess rather than commenting on the message board, I guess we can just raise the hands and we can unmute. So it will be easier and faster since we have very less participants today, only accountable executives. So, so dear sirs, do we have any questions as we are almost at the end of this program? So I guess we don't have much questions. So thank you, Simon. And finally, I would like to request Raju sir to highlight a few things. Sir?
Sorry, putting off and putting on the mask is taking some time. Sorry for that. Okay, so now it gives the safety, threat, and perception of safety in this given time. So where we are supposed to wear the mask. Nevertheless, it's a personal hygiene we have to take care of the first. Once again, I would like to repeat that if you read carefully the CAAN circular regarding resumption of flight from 17th of August, we have given very clear guidance what the operator has to do, what the flight crew has to do, and what are the conditions the operator has to make sure that the elevation is valid. I repeat, the elevations are valid because there are certain mitigation means prescribed in each QRG, which reference guide from CAAN side. So if you carefully see the mitigation measures given in the QRG, please kindly review each of the mitigation measures mentioned over there so that makes your flight safer, because it's not a normal operation. We have given a lot of extensions and alleviations due to this difficult time. So we have to bear in mind that it is not the normal safety precautions. Rather, the risk is heightened, and we have introduced more and more different types of risk in our operation, and we have to make sure that our operations are safer. On top of that, we have issued one guidance to the operator how to bring back the aircraft in service after a long time reservation. So there have been many concerns in different parts of the world about the preserved aircraft. And lately, I again highlighted the guidance issued by EASA SIB, Safety Information Bulletin, which I have forwarded to all the airline operators, including all my inspectors, to make sure that at least we follow the minimum guidance over there. So since they have collected a lot of practical data, and we can foresee the potential problem associated with the pitot anesthetic system. And these have already been forwarded to all the operators, especially in the manager level, and sometimes I've even forwarded to accountable managers level. My request to the accountable managers, please keep track on all the activities from your organizations and check with your post holders in maintenance and operation, how well they're prepared for that. Okay, please check update from them, and please be updated about the CAAN instructions, guidance, and circulars, and which can be visited from the, you can see, if you visit the CAAN website, you can see a lot of guidance materials, circulars, notices, and other publications. And on top of that, CAAN has already forwarded you the good guidance materials, best practices from different parts of the world, which will be useful for us if we follow them in our real operation context. Once again, I would like to repeat about the need of the procedure to bring back the aircraft in service after the long-term preservation. We have seen some certain cases in the world about the technical glitches they have experienced, which may also be some cases if we do not pay any particular attention to certain issues. And we have already identified those issues which should be highlighted and which should be undertaken to make sure that the perceived technical issues will not be encountering in our operation. That's what I want to highlight. So for further details, kindly visit the CBFC website and COVID, and you can see a lot of guidance, instructions, or updates with regard to the COVID operation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Raj, sir. So, yes, as stated, we have received lots of guidances from civil aviation, some guidance materials and all the circulars. So, and if we abide by those circulars and guidance materials, and if we heed to all the words shared to us by Mr. Simon Roberts, I'm sure we will fly very soon, and we will see each other in the sky. So with that being said, finally, I'd like to request Yograj sir to share some few words.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you so much. On behalf of Airlines Operation Association of Nepal, I would like to thank Mr. Simon Roberts, who has given us the opportunity to learn a lot of things about COVID and its impacts and what are the safety measures. So definitely we'll adopt all the words and we'll try to implement, and we will keep our aviation safe. In the meantime, I'd like to thank you all the airlines who has been participated today in this webinar, and my special huge thanks to Ashish Manandar and Utsav, so giving us a chance to be a part of co-organizer for this webinar. And in the meantime, who have been supported, especially CAAN, Raju sir, and all the stakeholders. So special thanks all of you. Thanks so much. See you.
Thank you, Raj sir. Now, finally, I'd like to request the President of Aeronautical Society of Nepal, Mr. Ashish Manandar, to share a few words.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot about the pandemic and opening of aviation during the pandemic. So, like, thank you very much, Simon. Thank you very much, Raju sir, and thank you, Yograj sir, and the Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank NREN for the technical Zoom support. And yeah, thank you, Utsav for moderating this session. Yeah. Yeah, thank you all of you. Thank you all the accountable executives today present. I hope we made an impact, I guess. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you all of you.
All right, thank you very much, Ashish. Yeah, finally, so I'd like to thank everyone for your active participation. Thank you, accountable executives from all our airlines for being present here in the webinar to restart our aviation. So hopefully we'll be flying high again since from 17th of August. So can't wait for that date. And for Aeronautical Society of Nepal, being able to host this program in such a short amount of time. Yeah, first and foremost, I would like to thank Mr. Simon Roberts for his participations. It would not have been possible if you had not agreed upon to this webinar. And thank you very much. And in this very short time, so yeah, thank you again. And obviously, lots of thanks goes to AOAN, Yogaraj sir, and Raju sir from Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal, because without the participation of AOAN and Civil Aviation, we couldn't be able to organize such a program. So I believe this is going to be very fruitful for all of us. And yeah, with that being said, I'd like to thank you all again. And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, signing out.